Well, I bring you greetings from Italy, where I'm at the moment on some holiday. Um, so having a delightful time and glad to be here. Yeah. So for those of you who are new to this, I see a few new faces. So we do these calls once a month, and they're primarily organized around one sort of process, which we'll introduce you to in a few minutes, and then there's an extended practice for you to actually begin to experience some of this work for yourself. And so a lot of the richness that comes out of these is the conversations you have with each other. Our theme for the year is trust. And the sort of section we're in right now is learning a bit about trusting others. And so again, even if you're here for the first time, you can dive right in and join the conversations. So if there's anything that you're bringing into the room with you, either because you're new or just returning and you'd like to just share something about how you are, please feel free to just drop a line in the chat box so we get a sense of the voices in the room. If you're new to us, we're just really curious about what brought you here and what you're curious about. And that way we get some of the rest of you in the room. And then our ever so wonderful Karen, who acts as our host, will kind of help read some of those out to make sure we get all the voices in the room that feel inclined to share.
Well, Susanna is just blaring in from Kenmore, Washington. So wonderful.
So, I'm getting back to the parking.
And
Who has the meeting?
Someone calling from the police station, it looks like.
yeah,
Okay.
very Tom, we might have to
There's Tom.
help Tom out.
Yeah. Tom's a veteran of these things. You'd think he would know by now. Yeah, maybe something dramatic happened, but
And
yeah.
Ruby, welcome from London. First time and watching. Yeah.
Perhaps I can share that I'm feeling very well because today I took part in an event where members of one of your programs, David, came together to talk about our learning in the narrative coaching program and the different ways of applying it into different domains of work. And we had just such a wonderful conversation, and were guided by two practitioners working very different areas of work, and then coming together and having this conversation was just really, really great. So this is a long, rich MI day, but I learned also that the Five Maturities event tonight is canceled. So
it's postponed until next week, Christopher, because I won't.
Exactly, yeah.
Where I am now, the Wi-Fi is going down tomorrow for repairs. I just discovered that. That's the joys of the delightful chaos that is Italy. So I didn't want to risk that they wouldn't have it back up in time and leave everybody stranded. So just to be safe, I'm going to rely on the Dutch system to bring us good Wi-Fi for next week for that call. Yeah.
David, I want to thank you for sharing that. I'm glad to know it wasn't you that went down.
No, thank you.
So great.
Yeah, sometimes Steve on our team, who does these kind of communications, gets very like he likes to be very efficient in his communication, and sometimes he leaves out some of the key words that sort of give context to the story. So I'm fine. I'm actually doing well.
Yay.
Yeah.
Well, if you're going to have the internet go down, what a wonderful place to
I know.
experience it from.
I'm suffering hour by hour here. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, so glad to have you all here, and yeah, it looks like a number of you are clustering around Seattle. Wonderful. Good. All right. Well, let me go ahead and share the slide so we can kind of see where we're at with all this. Yeah, so this is our session for today, and we're going to talk more about the whole concept of trust, and just some kind of keys for today. So for this quarter, basically this 4-month block, actually, we're focusing on trusting others. And in today's in particular, we're going to focus on the concept of letting come. And so that will make more sense for those of you who are new when you see the process that's about to come up. But this particular part of the flow has to do with, in our life, we often feel pressured or feel driven to go make things happen. And there's often this, we can get caught up in this sort of hamster wheel existence. And one of the things we've been exploring more and more in the programs over the last year is paying more attention to the moment we're in and what it's actually asking of us and bringing to us. And there's a bit of learning as surrender and letting things come as opposed to trying to grasp them or assume we know what they mean or make something happen. And so the question for today's session is really, what does your future self need from your current self? So sensing that any change process that you're in, anything you're working on, parts of it are already in play, parts of it are already coming at you and revealing themselves. And so what can we do in our present moment to notice those things and welcome those things into our life? So part of this whole process then for our theme this year is where does a lack of trust kind of impede that flow and impede that learning? This is large part about places where we have some dents in our system around trusting others, which might make us like ignore people that could be quite useful for us, misinterpret people that might be helpful to us, completely miss things that are happening around us. And so that level of trust in life, trust in process, trust in others is really where we're going to focus our energy for tonight. So the phrase that we're looking at, and this is the what matters, and this list will make more sense to those of you who are new when we show you the model in just a minute. But I was really struck by the sort of the figure of George Floyd, who became the sort of symbolic sort of catalyst for what became the Black Lives Matter movement in the US, and his whole famous phrase of "I can't breathe." And in the work that I'm doing now around the Five Maturities and some of the work that's in our Beyond coaching experience, we're looking a lot more at sort of the social dimensions of what our clients bring to us. And Emma, can you mute Karen, can you mute everybody?
You've muted David too.
I know, even I got muted. Thank you. And so I began to think more about, as we look at some of the things that we're facing in our own lives and the things that we're often helping our clients around, about just helping them imagine, so what if breath could more fully move through you? And so we sort of start with, and we started at the beginning of the year focusing on letting go as a sort of improvisational yes and. So accepting what is and inviting ourselves into a journey of discovering what's being asked of us. And so we know that when we like hyperventilate or we hold our breath, our decisions are not often as strong, or we're not as confident, we're not as clear. And so the more full our breath that we can bring to whatever we're encountering, the more options we have and the stronger that we feel. And so for this particular one, we're going to focus on the word can. And oftentimes when we get stuck in places where we don't trust fully, rightly or wrongly, it often ends up being focused more on I can't speak up, I can't do this, they won't let me, that's not acceptable, et cetera, et cetera. And so we're beginning to think about, what if we could have more trust in whatever area of our life is important to us? Would that elevate the possibility of what we could do? And so I want to just this is our kind of my main mantra now. This moment is your curriculum. So I will guide you through a process in a few minutes, and you will have a series of moments in the process. and your moment will be your curriculum. It may have nothing to do with the person in the box next to you on the screen. And so again, the beauty of this process is it's not, we're not trying to teach you anything. In a sense, we're not trying to guide you a certain direction. We're just saying, what if you could open yourself more fully to this moment around the issues of trust? And that is going to be your curriculum for today on whatever issue that you're choosing to engage in. And so, and then what we're going to invite you to do is sort of think of this as a spark or a light that gets lit in you. So how could you speak from that place, even if you don't fully understand this, even if you can't make this exquisite yoga pose like the woman on the screen, even if you to try this, you'd pull a hamstring and fall over. Doesn't matter. This is not a test. It's your life. And so we're going to just invite you to kind of, through the course of the activity that's about to start, just to let come whatever comes. Don't censor it, don't label it, don't judge it. Just notice what wants to emerge when you allow yourself to sort of listen in on the process and be guided by what unfolds for you. I think this is, yeah, okay. So before we do that, just want to see if anything has come up for any of you before we launch into the practice itself. Anything that is sparked for you in any way so far that feels important to you? And if not, we'll dive in. And if so, you can.
David?
Yes.
I just wanted to share something really came strong forward just now.
Okay.
This container you created with us, for us, I'm beginning to see how seemingly not directly related investigations or engaging of activities are actually on some deeper level related. They spark or contribute to each other. I used to kind of categorize and say, well, this is over here and that's over there.
Yeah.
And there's a sewing together.
Hmm.
Not that they're the same thing, but they're feeding each other in a way I have never noticed before. And it seems to be coming out of this moment is your curriculum.
Yeah. Well, I was drawn to that, creating that phrase, and all of these slides from all the things you come to Indigo, they're all just windows into reality to me. They're different ways of seeing everything that's present all the time. And so it's not like I'm bringing something that wasn't there before to the slide. It's just different words, different perspectives, different priorities to help us see different facets of the reality that we all walk in every day. And so it would not surprise me that you can start to see that behind the scenes, these are all starting to connect together.
Thank you. Yeah,
You're
it's
welcome.
quite magical and wonderful.
Yeah, good. All right. Anything else, Karen, that we should pay attention to for right now? Okay, great. All right, so what we're going to do, just to kind of get you started, and then we'll show you the frame in just a minute, but I want you to be able to, particularly if you're new to this, I want you to see the process through the lens of whatever you come up with as a result of this. So just some guidance to start with. So you're not there to help each other. You're not there to teach each other. You're there to observe yourself and others, to care for yourself and to speak for yourself. On the podcast I was doing with a colleague a couple hours ago, I was thinking about our role in many ways is that we are a loving mirror with a memory. So we can help our clients see things that they might not have seen before and remember what they've seen in the past when we need to bring that forward. So what I'm going to invite you to do at this moment in time, and you can take some notes if that helps you, is just think of an area or situation in your life or your work where you have a sense that something is calling you or challenging you. And you can decide what those words mean to you. So I'm just going to invite everybody just take a minute and sort of sit with this and say, what is on your mind or your heart that is feeling like it's beckoning you or challenging you, or maybe, yeah, yeah, calling forth something from you right now, even if it's something that you may not like at the moment. So just take a minute or two and just reflect on that, see what comes up for you, take a note for yourself, maybe write a headline or a sentence, a key word, draw a picture, whatever is going to be meaningful for you.
David, for the non-native speakers, could you explain to me the word what you've curated? What can you express it in other words?
Yes, so we're still only on number one at the moment, Christopher. So when we get to curate, so curate would be if you were to go to somebody's house and they had a cacophony of art all over the walls, or every room was painted completely differently, or they're furnished completely differently, it would not, for most of us, would not be a very pleasing experience. What makes a pleasing experience, like at a museum, is somebody has curated. They've gone through all the things that are available, and they've carefully chosen a set of them because they have something in common around a theme or an artist or a style. And so one of the ways to think about curation for our own professional development, when you go to a program, mine or anybody's, you don't remember it all. You don't even try to remember it all. You don't even, you throw away half the stuff, you put it on the shelf, you do whatever, but you curate, you pull out like the essence, the nuggets that meant something to you, that for whatever reason or whatever part of the journey that you're on.
Thank you.
Yeah. So as you've thought about something, to Christopher's great question, so just think about in this, like, what is the essence of what's important about you? And don't, like, it's not like the perfect answer or you're going to ponder this for 20 minutes, but as you just sit with this in the moment, what feels essential or important to you about this challenge? As best as you can imagine it now from what you can see now, which may not be very much. But just what is your feel, your instinct about what this is about for you? And then what I'm going to invite you to do when we kind of get to this part of the process in a minute, and you can do this and get started with this. If you've got a place on your desk or a chair across from you, I would like you to imagine that whatever this was, could be a word, an object, a person, an emotion, a metaphor. Imagine it sitting in the chair or the space across from you so you can see this. And look at it. And as you focus particularly on your in-breath, like what's it trying to get you to draw in? You know, it might mean you first notice, I'm holding my breath around this. Oh, there's some anxiety here for me or some uncertainty. So what if you were to start to exaggerate your in-breath and allow yourself to actually take in more, even if you don't know why yet? Because the ultimate invitation here is, what can you let come? What is being available to you, revealed to you, displayed for you from this piece of your story that you created that you might want to let further in? And we're going to use your in-breath to imagine that. So instead of having it out there, like, what if I took it in and I tried to feel, what does this feel like? What does it seem like? Where do I notice this in myself? And the whole purpose around this is then you start to notice trust, because trust ends up often making us either hold our breath, which is common, or hyperventilate. It's because we don't trust the in-breath. We don't trust letting things come because we want to manage it or block it or control it. But what if we were just to let this challenge in? We didn't have to figure it out. We didn't have to resolve it. We could just let it in so that we understood what this challenge is actually asking of us. And again, and then if you want to stand, you can, or you can continue to sitting. But as you think about the self in you that would allow this to come in, what does your current self need to do to be able to receive what this moment is offering? And so I could give you a concrete example for those of you who learn well that way. So I was in a conversation with somebody at a conference recently who was very appreciative of my work, and we had some really engaging conversations about how she might use it in her organization. And I was sort of felt inspired because she seemed really taken by this, to share with her my vision for where I'd like this piece of my work to go. And she kind of threw down the gauntlet. So why aren't you doing that? You got to think bigger. You got to go for it. And I'm like, well, and I could just feel myself getting defensive, and there's all these other factors, and then I thought, oh, my future self would really like my current self to have a bit more courage to at least consider, like, what if I outgrew my old style and used this invitation and breathed it in, actually what this woman was inviting me to think about in terms of myself and this part of my work. And so it gave me a really clear sense of what I could do now with my current self to be able to receive what my future self is hoping I will say yes to. Okay? So I'm going to just stop with the instructions for a minute and see if there's any questions about these. And then I'm going to walk you through the process while you're dwelling on these questions and seeing what your process reveals for you. But for now, anything about the steps you'd like to ask about before we do that?
David, apologies. So if I'm imagining a challenge
Yes.
and then explore what I've curated around that challenge, the essence of what I'm grasping there,
Yeah.
then imagining that something is coming towards my way. If I notice that this isn't necessary, this can also be anxiety, can it? So
Yes.
how would I frame that from something that is lacking as opposed to trust? Should that be something positive, or can this be anything?
It can be anything. So it's because the invitations that come from life, the challenges that come, don't often come wrapped in a briny, shiny paper with a red bow on top.
Yes.
So it might be like, for example, if anxiety was your piece. So again, most of us don't like feeling anxious, so we're going to push it away, right? But maybe there's something in the anxiety that we need to pay attention to. Like you could discover, like, what if I just breathed in 10% of this anxiety? What do I notice? Oh, that wasn't that bad at all. Oh, I actually have more resources than I thought I had. And you might get to a point where, heck, bring on more anxiety. I've got this, right? Um, and so again, part of it is this where we started this journey, which shows up even now in trusting others, is noticing the where we lack enough trust in ourselves or lack of trust in others that would allow us to be more expansive and breathe more fully. And so much of that starts within our capacity, just being with and present to what is actually true for us right now. We all know how to defend ourselves. We all know how to push things away. And this is a way to, what if I didn't judge this? You could decide, like partway through, oh, this is too much. I'm not ready for this anxiety. Well, you don't have to like surrender or get, just like, that's too much for right now. Let it go. Go back to the beginning and say, what else could I think about? So this is not a guts test. Can you man up in face of this? It's just like, could I let some of this in? And if I could let some of this in, what might it show me? Like for me, when this woman really quite dramatically challenged me at first, like, well, she doesn't even know me and blah, blah, blah. And then I thought, okay, what if I just stopped? What if I just like imagine this being true for a minute? And all I had to do was breathe in that imagination for even, a small amount. And I noticed this smile came over my face. And I thought, oh, there's actually part of me that hopes she's right and that maybe I could go do this. And it created this sense of elation that was quite a surprise for me. Even I was still petrified, but I thought, oh, there's actually more here than I realized. And maybe I should um, pay some attention to this, which I have. And so, yes, I'll talk to her again in 2 weeks, and I'm hoping to report that I've actually started on the journey that she inspired in me. Yeah. Anything else in the chat box, Karen, before we dive in?
We're just going to say goodbye to Emma. Thank you for joining
Okay,
us, and then continue on. It's perfect. Yeah.
great. All right. All right. So I'm going to put up our process in a minute, but and we'll show you all at the end, but I'd rather have you not try to memorize the model or look ahead. So if you wouldn't mind, I will guide you through this, and then at the end we'll show you the model if it's new for you, and you also will get the recording, so you'll have it for yourself. But I'd just like to invite you to close your eyes and to settle into wherever you are in listening on the call. And there's no need to sit a specific way or breathe a certain way. Just notice the fact that your body is breathing you. And let it just relax. Your body's been doing this for hundreds of thousands of times. It knows how to breathe. And as you breathe, just sort of bring into your mind's eye wherever you ended up with the assignment. It could be with the calling, the invitation itself. It could be something around something sitting across from you in the chair, although that might not surface for a while. But whatever you're kind of using to guide you, just sort of bring that now. So as we kind of walk through the 4 steps, you have a chance to kind of follow along on the journey with whatever appeared to you when we ran through the questions. So as we begin, I'm just going to invite you to focus on the next exhale. And really maybe exaggerate that. And as you breathe out, just check with yourself. As I sit with what is being asked of me, what am I being asked to let go of? What am I being asked to release? Perhaps as compost, something I don't need as much anymore, that I could repurpose to fertilize what needs to come next. This is the yes and part of our process. We used Christopher's example. Yes, I notice the anxieties here as a challenge to me, and I'm willing to sit with my anxiety for now. And just continue to, as you move through this phase, just continue to notice what happens as you breathe out. Does it change? Does it deepen? Does anything come up for you? And this is our process of descending into maturity to be able to hold space for what's to come. And then we move into our next piece here, which is sort of breathing with. Take something with you from that first process. Maybe what's across from you, or maybe the word or phrase that's come up for you is shifting, or some new awareness is arising. This is all about letting be. So rather than trying to solve the problem or push this away or figure out you need to resolve it somehow, what if you could just let this be? And you're sort of breathing with what you're discovering. And this is where our curation comes in. A lot of times there's a settling that happens here as you let things be. It's often quite maybe unsettled in the beginning. It's a turbulent mix of emotions or images or memories. And so I had a particular, for my own scenario, I had a particular image that came to mind of what it would look like or might feel like if I were to step into her invitation. And it sort of curated that image rather than worrying about how I'm going to get there or what other people will think or all those kind of things that often come up. Just distill this down to if I could just be with this sensation of what if this were true. And the value of this one is it gives us access to the mystery. So again, we're not here to make action plans or goals. We're helping you sort of to learn from yourself, to learn from what's coming up. And what may start to emerge as you let things be and settle more is it may become much clearer what this is actually all about in the end. And this is where the I starts to come in, where you start to claim the mystery, claim your breath, claim I can let this be and I can trust that it will unfold. I can find others who will help me be with this. I can let go of things that are not going to serve me in this space. So just keep breathing with whatever's coming up here in terms of letting be, and just see what it may kind of bubble up to the top as something that matters to you that you want to bring forward. Mm. And as you do that, and if you need more time, you can continue to do that while we're giving the rest of the instructions, because this next phase will relate to what you've just been thinking about. But the one we're going to focus on even more for tonight is this notion of letting come. So maybe there was an image or an emotion or a metaphor that started to emerge for you. And even if you don't really understand it yet or why it's there or what it means, that's perfectly fine. This is not about rationally or cognitively grasping something. It's about, what if I were to let this mystery come towards me? What if I were to actually start to focus more on my in-breath and take more of this in, even if I don't fully understand it yet? As you do that, you might bump into trust issues in yourself or from where this came from or the other person. And just notice that and say, what do I want to do with this trust? And if at any point it's too much or there's not enough trust at all, then just go back to your breath and be still. If, on the other hand, something's starting to emerge, what if you were to breathe that in more fully? And this is, as you start to breathe it in more fully, you might again discover anything that's affecting your level of trust in yourself or your trust of others. Mm. And what comes out of this process of breathing in is you start to recognize that there's a channel opening up in you. That actually, if you were to avail yourself of what's already happening, there's new things that are going to be available to you. Some of you might be tempted at this phase to, oh, I need to go read 10 more books, or I need to take 3 more classes, or get another degree, or ask 5 more friends, or what if I just kept breathing in and realized, wow, what if I already had enough right now for myself? And I don't have to be perfect. I don't have to have figured it all out, but I can actually move towards mastery by starting to let this flow through me. And so it doesn't have to be a destination. It doesn't have to be perfection. It could just be, say, I feel myself now moving in this direction because I've let this come closer into my soul, my heart, my mind, my body, and I can start to feel what this might be like to move towards whatever was challenging me. This is the can. It doesn't say I can solve all of this or I can be brilliant at this. I can let this in. And so in my case, I said, wow, what's keeping me from imagining this coming true? Now I noticed some speed bumps in my own breathing and some speed bumps in my mind. Oh, I remember those. They've been there for a while. And so then I started noticing, like, what can I kind of release to let come and let flow more so that those no longer are impediments as much. And this is the ascent to mastery, putting some of those old pieces behind and actually starting to breathe in and channel things that we're knowing and discovering to be true for us around whatever it is that you are working on this process. So I'll give you another minute or so just on your own, just to keep breathing, particularly around the in-breath, and see what emerges for you. And then we'll move to the last phase. right, so we'll move into the last phase. This has to do with the word breathe itself. Now, however this is played out for you, I'm hoping that you'll have some new insight, new awareness, new possibility, new courage. Whatever emerged for you is just fine and what suits you and your journey. So this one is about letting flow. Like, what if you could let that move out from you, even if it doesn't feel fully formed, which it most likely doesn't, because you just realized this. But what if you could breathe through this, like you're now bringing this to the world? And you're starting to figure out what is this allowing, what is this increased awareness, increased trust, increased breath? What is it making possible? What's coming out now that maybe wasn't before? And an important piece of this for you, for all of us in this phase, is what we think of as complete. This is not opening up 47 other new channels. It's not taking a massively deep dive on all this for right now, or working on 4 other related topics. It's like, could you complete this spiral, this full circle, by breathing through the process you've just been through, reminding yourself kind of what you've discovered along the way around whatever it is that you've been dwelling on. And the outcome of completion and letting it flow is you can actually process the memory of what you've just done in a way that would allow you to remember this. So perhaps you notice you have a different posture now, or your breathing is different, or you have a different headline for the story than the one you started with, or you've realized something about yourself that's important that you forgot. And so this one is really just, again, the process of completion, and seeing where there's new flow now that there might not have been before, or at least be more aware of the breathing through that flow now in a way that was not there before. So I'll give you a few more breaths here, and then we'll bring this to a close. So as you bring this to a close, I'm going to ask you, Karen, if you could create some groups of 3 for us for half an hour. And while she's doing that, I'm just going to invite you to take a moment to write down any notes you'd like to bring into your small group. So if you just take a couple minutes for that, and by the time you're done, Karen will have your groups ready for you. All right, are you ready to go, Karen? Wonderful. If you need more time to write, just ask that of your group. I'm sure they'll grant that to you. If you like to process these things that way and you need that time, just ask for it. And then I'm just going to wish you a very wonderful, generative conversation with your small group, and invite you each to make the process right for the next 30 minutes be what you need it to be to support whatever you started with this process. Okay? All right. Karen, if you would open the rooms, that'd be great. There they are. Hmm. All right. So we had some new folks with us tonight, so I'm full faith you treated them well and welcomed them into your group. And would love to just hear what emerged for you that feels important to you. What did you learn about yourself, or what did you learn about what you were thinking on?
Something that seemed to be the plumb line for each of us with variations was attraction rather than promotion.
Okay. Would you care to say more, Indigo? Like, what did that mean for you all?
Engaging what calls to us, our passion, what rings our bells, ends up connecting us with our people, those that we could interact with or serve well, as opposed to being all things to everyone
Okay.
type of energy. And you touched upon it in sharing, David, when the woman said, you know, why aren't you doing that? And you worked with that, and the future self idea of what does the future self need from us now? And again, I think letting ourselves be attracted to what that is, as opposed to trying to marshal it.
Yeah. Yeah, and in some ways, Indigo, part of what comes up for me is that we're encouraging our future self to make some of those choices more than our current self.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. What's that person gonna need, not what we're carrying right now.
Now,
Yeah.
different perspective.
Yes.
Future self compared to what we see now.
Yeah.
What Indigo said and what you reflected on, David, and even our discussion in our small group brought up this sense that this exercise allowed for a greater agility in the process of becoming than maybe I saw before, that I could simultaneously have an acceptance for what is in this moment and curiosity and awareness of what my future self may need or want, and that I could hold both of those and be open to the decisions or what might be present for me as I continue to move forward in maybe a different way than I had before.
Yeah. Thank you, Tracy. Yeah. What's coming up for me in that is, I think part of this for me is for myself and others, as just observing that we all, in many ways, we're social creatures, we're animals in a way, and yet we don't really trust our instincts. And you don't find, a herd of gazelle out in the savannah making an action plan or setting goals for itself, right? It's a human folly, right?
David, that really speaks to what Susanna just brought up in the
Great.
chat, is that, and there's been some resonance around it, is that we really didn't focus on the exercise. It was about being together and feeling connected at this time, like on the
Wonderful.
savannah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they get very good at reading signals. Oh, that's a lion. We might want to move. There's a whole bunch of lions. We might want to move faster. And so a lot of this, to what I was hearing in you, Tracy, in part was this ability to read and trust signals. I don't have to have it all figured out ahead of time. I don't have to know everything first. And some of the things that might be of service to me, I won't even discover until I start moving. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Oh, I'm going to confess I've forgotten how to say your name well. So could you just help me?
Sure, it's Hiva.
Eva. Okay. I
Yeah,
feel like I could go off the rails pretty badly if I wasn't careful. So thank you.
that's fine. Of course. Yeah, what we discussed during our group, I mean, there are a lot of common themes like you know, perfectionism, wanting to be
Mhm.
perfect in what we're pursuing, which is coaching, and also fear of judgment and fear of failure, something that we want to avoid. So
Mhm.
we would need a lot of, I guess, compassion in there and a trust in ourselves that, this is a journey. It's not about the destination. So just, allowing that courage and trust to come in and help us,
Mm.
in that journey. And something we also talked about was actuating our way through rather than thinking, because we have a lot of ideas or a lot of thoughts that we want to put into, like, for example, our coaching career.
Mhm.
It can go on forever, but unless we try to act on them, it's not going to get anywhere.
No.
And then another thing that came up was that all of us, I feel like we knew more about what we don't want rather than what we want.
Mm.
And so having to work through that and, find our way through things that we don't want rather than, like
Mm.
finding our way through that and trying to like
Yeah.
figure out what to focus on.
Mm. Wow. Great. Mm. Yeah. I think mistakes are such an odd thing because in so many other professions, there's actually a lot of intentionality about making mistakes because you actually learn more from them than you do from your successes much of the time. And when people try to perfect something by not making mistakes, it takes them actually longer to get better than if they actually become conscious of their mistakes. But somehow in coaching, we don't give a lot of permission. And so I've shared a couple of times with other groups before that I don't do it as much anymore because I don't travel as much to do coaching programs. But one of my favorite things to do in workshops was we start with a Ministry of Silly Walks, a classic Monty Python skit. And then we would have them, and I love doing this, particularly like in managers coach or leaders coach programs. I would say you have 10 minutes to have a coaching conversation with your partner, and I want you to do the worst possible job coaching them. Like I want you to be an atrocious coach. And then there's going to be a prize at the end for the worst coach. And then they all kind of burst out laughing, but they realized that they were holding themselves back because they were afraid of making a mistake. So you're never going to learn if you don't make mistakes. And yes, you can't be mean to people. You can't hit them that way. But what if you actually let go of not worrying so much? And by sort of laughing at themselves a bit about being an absurd coach, it kind of freed them up like, oh, wow, there's actually a lot more that I could do if I wasn't so worried about not doing it perfectly. Yeah. Thanks for coming, Tracy. Hopefully we'll see you again. Have a great day. Is there anybody else who hasn't chimed in who would like to?
Hi, David.
Hi,
Michelle
Michelle.
here. How are you? It's so nice
Doing
to see
well?
you. Good. Had a really awesome time with my partners Indigo and Anna. Just some of the things that are popping up for me now as you're talking. I think it's really important because you said today we're kind of looking at what matters and trusting others. And I find for me that the people that I invite to kind of weigh in on my ideas or where I'm, thinking of going or what I'm thinking or doing is really important. And I try really hard. There's a lot of yes but people out there, and I just really try to tap into the yes and the ones who really do care and do want the best for me, and I try to be that person as well. As you were talking, I was just thinking last night, I play on a couple of slow pitch teams, and a couple of my fellow players are really struggling with their hitting, and I could kind of see what was happening. And so I just asked, I said, would you be okay if I just sort of told you what I'm seeing there? And they were so great. Yes, please, because I could tell they were frustrated, right? Like so I just sort of said, well, like you're kind of reaching, and maybe you want to stand, in this position by the plate. And I'm not going to take credit for what happened after that, but things got better, so so I feel like, as we're talking today, and I also want to say I was so tired. I was so tired today when I woke up, and I've been dragging my butt, and I was thinking of not coming. But since arriving here, I've got this big energy boost. So thank you all. Yeah, so I feel like, when we see people around us who are really putting effort into things, and if there's anything that we can do to kind of be that supportive person, and yeah, and then surround ourselves also with those kinds of people. So anyway, that was just what was coming up for me. So thank you for letting me hop on here and say that.
You're welcome. Yeah. How about for anybody else?
Yeah,
Christopher.
I can share. So we had a wonderful discussion, and we were all trying to make sense of the exercise, because I got lost in my own story while listening to your guidance, and I wasn't sure, was it your story, was it mine? So we had someone in our group start with the story, and I was very blunt and asked permission if I could use it to kind of make sense of the exercise itself. And one unexpected outcome of this was I realized how important it can be if, as we are narrating our challenge, to really slow down and pay attention, because initially the topic that came up was around anxiety, and then as we returned to that story and kind of took stock and kind of freeze framed it a little bit, it turned out that actually that wasn't the only feeling there. There was also excitement, and there was also curiosity, and real great energy, positive energy that was unnoticed in the beginning. At least that was my impression. So we had so much more to work with, and that shaped the whole story as to what it is that we can bring in front of us and invite us. Not just the anxiety, but really kind of, from a much more engaging, empowering energy. So slowing down really was really helpful.
Wonderful. Thank you, Christopher.
I hope I got it right.
And we still will love you.
You did. Yeah, no, I was the one that he was speaking of, and it was wonderful because it really, the slowing down transformed the thought process, and it really made me realize that some of the anxiety is masking the excitement or of possibilities and opportunities. And I don't think I'd thought of it that way. It just kind of came up when I realized the shallow breathing and all this, and some of that, it's like, oh, I'm kind of excited about the possibilities. So I thought that was really, really well done in terms of just like making me pause, slow down, and reflect on what's really coming up. It's not all bad. It's not all anxiety or the fear of failure or the perfectionism that seemed to be the common thread in our group. But there's also that excitement and the curiosity. So thank you.
Yeah, Kent.
Yeah, I appreciate that slowing down that you mentioned there, for a couple of reasons. One, as we talked a little bit, or at least I shared that a reminder that the point two there I thought was a reminder that that I can curate differently, that I don't have to curate my story the way that I always have.
Mm.
Bring other aspects in and different perspectives. And then kind of reminiscent of your deer picture or deer video from a while back. This morning when I was taking my walk, there was a butterfly and I kind of following the same path for a while. And for a while I entertained just the cute little idea that, I've got my pet butterfly, and then later I thought, well, of course I didn't last long, right? But later I realized, even though they don't have a conscious that I'm aware of, but I might be the pet human, for the butterfly. That there's different ways to realize where we fit in this world, and that can lighten things up maybe a little bit.
Mm.
Mm.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, Michelle, and then we'll come back to Per. Yeah.
I'm still awake, David, so this is a
Brilliant.
positive.
Yes.
Yeah. I experienced a full circle breath. So just a note, I've been diagnosed with severe sleep apnea.
Mm.
And I'm actually going to call it that I think I've had sleep apnea from the moment, so through the cycle, from the moment that I decided to stop breathing when I was little.
Mm.
And everything's just come. So for anyone who has clients, if they don't know how to breathe, they can turn out like me with sleep apnea, which I only found out Monday. So it's a really interesting cycle to go through this experience that you put us through, David, because even though it's the current self and the future self, as you know what I do as I care for my husband, it was a really important thing to understand. Of course, breathing is everything, and your health can be impacted. And any of our clients, anyone that we know, if we don't really, I suppose, have these experiences to understand the breath and what that actually could mean and what it can do, even though you don't even realize that that's part of something within. So I want to thank you for that release. What matters, it truly does. And so thank you for this morning. And thanks, Tracy and Janet, for your shares today. We had lots in common and lots to talk about of our moments together as we breathe together. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. I wish you well on that journey. Yeah. Per, you had your hand up. And then we'll call it a quits for today.
Yeah, I'm gonna double down on that support for sleep apnea. That's I'm glad I'm just personally just super glad that you're aware of it and going to be able to get the help around that, because it can make a world of difference. So I think I was just going to call out, because you were talking about the herd, and what's so interesting, we didn't get the butterfly story. I was in there with Kent. I would have loved to hear what the journey of a pet human is, because that would have been super fun. But what really struck me is that the different levels of depth and spaces that we made for each other to expand the practice. And then when we come out in this group, it diversifies even more, and and really where we need it, right? I mean, so there's that I won't say a herd mentality, but there's that herd space, or maybe it's the watering hole, but then we're also running together depending on what the energy is, and it's all matched. And I just thought that was beautifully demonstrated with the work today. So thank you.
Wonderful. Yeah. So even you as a small group can experience this flow for yourselves as well. So all right. Well, I want to just thank you for our wonderful time together. Thank you, Karen, as always, for your wonderful hosting. And we meet every month around the same time. And we'll finish out this part of this cycle in July. And then in August, we'll start.
Did they shut off your mic?
No. Anyways, we'll start a new cycle in August. That'll take us through to December, and for now, I wish you well, and I look forward to seeing you next month.
Thank you, David, everyone, Karen.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody. And on your
Michelle,
holiday.
Anna.
Yeah.
Thanks, Karen.
Thanks, David. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
See you guys.
Bye.